Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Have you ever wondered how one simple act of kindness can change the course of someone's entire life? Today's story is about a man who had everything money could buy but not a single person willing to stand beside him when he needed it most. It is also about a single father who had almost nothing except a heart full of compassion. What happened when these two strangers crossed paths became a lesson that an entire city would never forget. On the top floor of the tallest office building in the city lived a man named Alexander Hart. His name appeared on magazine covers, business rankings, and television interviews. He owned companies across several countries, employed thousands of people, and possessed more wealth than most families could imagine earning in generations. But 6 months before his 55th birthday, everything changed. A devastating car accident left Alexander paralyzed from the waist down. The confident executive who once walked into boardrooms with unstoppable energy now spent every day in a wheelchair. At first, everyone promised they would stay by his side. His business partners called every morning. His relatives visited every weekend. His old friends swore nothing would ever come between them. But promises became excuses. Phone calls became text messages. Text messages became silence. People who once competed for a seat beside him suddenly became too busy to visit. Some feared his disability. Others only cared about the power he no longer seemed to have. The loneliness hurt more than the paralysis ever could. As his birthday approached, his personal assistant Emily refused to let the day pass unnoticed. She secretly organized a birthday celebration in the grand ballroom of Alexander's luxury hotel. Hundreds of invitations were sent. Business executives, celebrities, politicians, charity leaders, family members, old classmates, former employees. Everyone received an elegant invitation. Alexander didn't know about the party. Emily hoped seeing so many familiar faces would restore his faith in people. On the other side of the city, 34-year-old Daniel Carter lived in a tiny apartment with his 8-year-old daughter Lily. Daniel had been raising Lily alone since his wife passed away from illness 5 years earlier. Every morning he woke before sunrise. He prepared breakfast, packed Lily's lunch, walked her to school, then spent the day working construction jobs wherever he could find them. Money was always tight. Some weeks they had to choose between paying the electric bill or buying new shoes. Yet Lily never complained. She believed her father was the strongest man in the world. One rainy afternoon Daniel accepted a delivery job after finishing construction work. The extra money would help pay for Lily's school books. His last delivery was an expensive birthday cake addressed to the Grand Hart Hotel. When he arrived, the loading entrance was strangely quiet. Employees rushed through the hall carrying decorations while whispering nervously. Daniel carefully carried the enormous cake inside. A young hotel worker accidentally bumped into him. "I'm sorry," the worker sighed. "Today's been a disaster." Daniel smiled. "Everything okay?" The worker laughed bitterly. It was supposed to be the CEO's birthday party. Hundreds of guests were invited. Almost nobody has arrived. Daniel looked around. Rows of beautiful tables sat untouched. Fresh flowers decorated every corner. An orchestra quietly rehearsed to an empty room. The entire ballroom looked magnificent. Yet it felt colder than an abandoned warehouse. Emily stood near the entrance checking her watch every few seconds. Each passing minute deepened the sadness in her eyes. Daniel placed the cake on the decorated table. "Maybe people are just running late," he said. Emily forced a smile. "They're not coming." Daniel didn't know what to say. Just then the hotel elevator opened. Alexander rolled himself into the ballroom. His wheelchair moved slowly across the polished floor. He looked around. Empty chairs. Empty tables. Silent musicians. No laughter. No applause. No family. No friends. Only Emily stood there with tears filling her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Alexander stared at the room for several long moments. Then he smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had expected disappointment long before it arrived. "So this is what success looks like," he quietly said. Daniel heard every word. Something inside him broke. He remembered the nights he and Lily celebrated birthdays with homemade cupcakes because they couldn't afford cakes. Those birthdays had little money but endless love. This room had unlimited wealth and absolutely no love. Daniel looked at the clock. He still had time before picking Lily up from her after-school program. He walked toward Alexander. "Happy birthday, sir." Alexander looked surprised. "You don't even know me." Daniel nodded. "Maybe not. But nobody deserves to spend their birthday alone." Emily watched silently. Daniel pulled out one of the empty chairs and sat beside Alexander. "It isn't much," he said with a grin, "but now your party has one guest." Alexander laughed for the first time in months. It was a small laugh. But it was real. They began talking. Daniel never mentioned Alexander's fortune. He never asked for business advice. He never requested money. Instead he asked about Alexander's childhood. His favorite memories. His parents. The happiest day of his life. Questions nobody had asked in years. Alexander answered every one. Hours passed without either man noticing. When Daniel mentioned needing to pick up his daughter, Alexander smiled. "Bring her back." An hour later Daniel returned with Lily. She carried a tiny paper bag. Walking nervously toward Alexander, she smiled. "My dad said today is your birthday." Alexander nodded. She reached inside the bag. "I wanted you to have this." Inside was a handmade friendship bracelet woven from colorful threads. Alexander stared at it. "It's beautiful." "I made it myself," Lily said proudly. "My teacher says real presents come from your heart." Alexander's eyes filled with tears. He had received luxury watches worth hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout his life. None of them meant as much as that simple bracelet. He carefully asked Emily to tie it around his wrist. "I'll wear this every day," he promised. Lily hugged him without hesitation. Nobody had embraced Alexander since his accident. For several seconds he simply closed his eyes. He had forgotten what genuine affection felt like. The orchestra, seeing the unexpected warmth filling the room, quietly began playing Happy Birthday. Hotel employees gathered around. Chefs. Housekeepers. Security guards. Receptionists. Maintenance workers. One by one they joined the celebration. Someone lit the candles. Everyone sang together. The ballroom that had once echoed with silence suddenly overflowed with sincere voices. Alexander blew out the candles while smiling more brightly than he had in years. That evening changed something inside him. The following Monday he invited Daniel to lunch. Daniel assumed it was simply to say thank you. Instead Alexander asked a surprising question. "If someone gave you enough money to never work again, what would you do?" Daniel thought carefully. "I'd still work." Alexander looked confused. Daniel smiled. "I just spend my time helping other single parents who are struggling like I did." Alexander leaned back. "No expensive cars?" Daniel shook his head. "No mansion?" "No." "No luxury vacations?" Daniel laughed. My daughter and I are already happy sharing ice cream at the park." Alexander realized he was sitting across from the richest man he had ever met. Not because of money. Because Daniel possessed something wealth could never purchase. Contentment. Over the next several weeks the two became unlikely friends. Daniel visited after work. Lily brought new drawings every weekend. Alexander smiled more. Laughed more. Started leaving his penthouse again. Employees noticed the difference immediately. Board meetings became hopeful instead of tense. The company's atmosphere transformed. Then Alexander made a decision that stunned the corporate world. Instead of spending millions on another luxury headquarters, he announced a new foundation. Its mission would provide housing assistance, childcare support, rehabilitation programs, and emergency grants for single parents raising children alone. Reporters couldn't believe it. What inspired this dramatic change? Alexander smiled at the cameras. "A little girl gave me a bracelet." The reporters laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. Applications poured in from families across the country. Thousands received help during the first year alone. Children stayed in school. Parents avoided homelessness. Families found hope again. Daniel volunteered every weekend at the foundation. He refused every offer of a salary. "I already have enough," he always said. One afternoon Alexander privately transferred ownership shares of one of his companies into a trust benefiting the foundation permanently. No newspaper knew about it. No television station reported it. He wanted the act to remain quiet. Months later another birthday arrived. Emily once again organized a celebration. This time she expected another disappointing evening. Instead something unbelievable happened. Long before the party began, hundreds of people filled the ballroom. Families helped by the foundation. Employees inspired by Alexander's transformation. Children carrying handmade birthday cards. Single parents bringing homemade desserts. Wheelchairs stood beside baby strollers. Construction workers laughed beside executives. Teachers chatted with hotel cooks. Nobody cared about status. Everyone came because they genuinely wanted to celebrate the man whose kindness had changed their lives. Alexander rolled into the ballroom and stopped in complete disbelief. Every chair was filled. Every table overflowed with smiling faces. The applause lasted several minutes. He searched through the crowd until he spotted Daniel and Lily standing near the front. Lily was wearing the same bright smile she had the year before. Daniel simply nodded. No words were necessary. Alexander understood everything. The room wasn't full because of his wealth. It was full because he had finally learned that people remember how you make them feel, not how much money you have. When it was time to give a speech, Alexander looked around the room before speaking. "A year ago I believed I had lost everything after my accident. I thought paralysis had taken away my future. Then I discovered the truth. My greatest loss wasn't the ability to walk. It was believing that success meant collecting power instead of relationships. One lonely birthday taught me that a stranger with a kind heart can become more like family than people you've known for decades." He paused, looking directly at Daniel. "A single father walked into my life carrying a birthday cake. He left carrying my respect, my friendship, and my gratitude forever." The crowd erupted into applause. Daniel looked embarrassed. Lily squeezed his hand proudly. Alexander continued. "If you're watching this today and you think your small act of kindness doesn't matter, let me tell you something. One conversation can save a lonely heart. One smile can restore hope. One visit can remind someone they are not forgotten. Never underestimate the power of simply showing up." As the celebration continued, children danced across the ballroom floor while parents laughed together. Employees who once feared approaching their CEO now treated him like family. Alexander no longer measured success by stock prices or skyscrapers. He measured it by the number of lives touched through compassion. Years later, people would still tell the story of the birthday party where almost no one came. They would remember how a wealthy CEO discovered the true meaning of friendship, not through influential guests or famous names, but through an ordinary single dad and his little daughter whose hearts were far richer than any bank account. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all was this: kindness never asks how much someone owns before offering a seat at the table. It simply shows up when everyone else walks away. If this story touched your heart, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that genuine compassion still exists in this world. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep believing in the power of kindness, and never miss an opportunity to be the person who shows up when someone needs you most.